I'm Angela Washko. I'm the director of Workhorse Queen, a feature-length documentary film focused on Ed Popil, a former telemarketing manager in Rochester, New York, who at the late age of 44 gets cast on the reality TV show RuPaul's Drag Race as his drag queen alter ego, Mrs. Kasha Davis.
Can we talk about how long it took him to get on the show and how that very much is a part of this story and his wonderful story as well?
Yeah, so Mrs. Kasha Davis was sending audition tapes into RuPaul's Drag Race from the first season of RuPaul's Drag Race in 2009, and then season 2, and season 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and then was actually cast from the casting video that Mrs. Kasha Davis made in season 7.
As far as your connection to the story, can you share with us how y'all met and how you were able to tell this story?
Yeah, so I'm a professor of electronic time-based media art at Carnegie Mellon University, so that's a lot of words. But basically, in my own art practice, I make performance art, I make experimental video games, I make video art, but all of my work is sort of, I guess, united by a focus on the impacts of media on gender and sexuality. So, RuPaul's Drag Race has had a huge impact, introducing people across all of the U.S. and abroad to what drag is like, what the drag subculture might be like, communities of drag performers might be like, and what it means to do drag. I became very interested in the impact that the TV show is having. As a performance organizer, I was already frequently working with drag queens in all of the cities I've lived in. It was interesting to me that Rochester has had 3 queens who's been cast on the show. That's more than Philadelphia. That's more than San Francisco, which is really known to be a kind of, very prolific place for drag performance. So I was like, what's going on in Rochester? And also as a feminist artist, I was very interested in Mrs. Kasha Davis and her sort of this housewife persona, she calls it, and her specific focus on kind of channeling the experiences of women who've performed domestic labor and wanting to kind of honor them through her persona, who's also based on her own mother. So, I became very interested in her particular relationship to women and trying to channel and honor their experiences.
I love that that's a part of the film that shows the unique diversity of the drag queen community itself, which I think is something that people outside of the drag queen community probably never think of or even realize, that it is so diverse and different. Can you talk a bit about the fact that drag queens are not just all one type of drag queen? There are so many different variables to their stories, and to, like you said, the fact that Rochester, of all places, has this weird amalgamation of really amazing drag queens when you wouldn't expect that. You would think San Francisco, but the diversity in the drag queen community is hugely diverse. I was blown away by that.
Yeah, I think the queer performance community in general, there are so many gender nonconforming performers, trans performers, drag kings, drag queens, people who are doing a form of drag that is interested in crossing over between queen and king and sort of complicating those binaries even. So the drag community is so much more diverse than definitely than perhaps the the types of drag that you even see on RuPaul's Drag Race. Through even just focusing on Rochester and the queens who are profiled on the show, some of them do pageants and are, very committed to the drag pageant system, which is, sort of like a drag version of a beauty pageant. And there are different cities that have their own pageants. That's not really Mrs. Kasha Davis's thing. She's focused perhaps more on comedy and acting and community-based work than perhaps looking as glamorous as she can all the time, although of course she looks great. Mrs. Kasha Davis, if you see this, you look great. There's so many different ways to approach and participate in performance within the queer community, and this film at its core is also about celebrating, some of the older performers in that community that are frequently either the butt of jokes on reality television. They're so old, they're set in their ways or whatever. And I think in making this film, I really wanted to honor the older performers who have paved the way for so many younger performers who can see a pathway to a full-time career in the entertainment industry because of something like Drag Race. So
how long did you actually get to film, and also how long did y'all's connection happen where you could get so intimate and get to some of the stuff that we get to now experience? Because I feel like there's a lot of amazing moments of reflection in this. Can you talk about getting that?
Yeah, so the film was shot over the course of around 3 years, and I will say that an amount of trust and intimacy was definitely built over that time. When you're working with someone who's already a performer, who's very used to or wants to have maybe control over how they're perceived, they're very aware of how they might be edited. And so in the beginning, when I would first go to Rochester, sometimes Ed, when being interviewed, would want to get these sort of like big lines in, and would always come back to them. And I had to keep saying, Ed, I'm going to be following you for a long time. I'm going to interview you so many times. You don't have to rush and feel like you have to kind of get to that line that you want to say, but it took some time. Also when Mrs. Kasha Davis was in drag and we'd be in Los Angeles at DragCon, she would, at every booth or a queen she knew, she'd be like, hello, I'm here with Workhorse Queen, and I'm this is the fabulous Cynthia Lee Fontaine. We're great sisters. There was this kind of very performative, very, very big sort of narrating energy. And eventually I had to say, people get to see that a lot from you. You have your social media platforms, you have your time on the show, you also do all this other stuff with the extended projects that RuPaul's Drag Race have spun off. Maybe this film is an opportunity for you to kind of bring the wall down and talk about, how difficult some of this journey is. And, there's a tremendous amount of pressure among the queens who've been on the show to not do that. They want to say that they're grateful for the opportunity that they've had, but sometimes it's hard to admit when things aren't going that well, or when you have empty audiences, or when you're excited to be in a panel and you don't get called up for it. All things that happened in the course of my filming, or you're on a tour in Australia and a promoter threatens to not pay you. I really admired that eventually, because of our trust and because Ed really trusted that we were going to make the story and dialogue, allowed me to show some of the darker sides of that experience. And I hope that it makes the joy of the Rochester community resonate in contrast with some of the things that on paper seem like they would be really valuable and amazing experiences and were, maybe ultimately disappointing or short-lived. Sorry, that was long.
No, but it's really important because I think that's so much of the film was that. So thank you. Can you tell me a bit about the title and how that goes into what you just said? But also, there is very much I think, a uniqueness to the title itself.
Yeah, so Workhorse Queen was not our first title. There were other titles. They weren't as good. But, Workhorse Queen came to me. I was rewatching, all the footage from when Mrs. Kasha Davis was on RuPaul's Drag Race. And in that process, I had to watch her elimination over and over again, which was sad for me the first time because I was such a big fan. And then even sadder, being embedded in this journey with her. And watching that, a guest judge, Isaac Mizrahi, who's a, fashion icon, said he called her a workhorse queen, but he said it had a very negative connotation. He said, workhorse queens, they basically said that they were older queens, they were sort of basic, and if they don't entertain you immediately, they're done, they're not interesting, they're not worth continuing to look at, basically. And that really struck me because I think one of the things that I think RuPaul's Drag Race kind of ignores or doesn't present on its show is all of these queens who are at the sort of very foundation of drag communities. The mother, the drag mother, the person who is organizing all the shows, making sure that everybody knows what they're doing, knows their numbers, has everything they need, mentors, people who are coming into the community, and are such an important part of this, amazing performance culture. And to kind of reduce that to, being sort of this basic, uninteresting kind of thing really bothered me. And there's this thing that Mrs. Kasha Davis does when people call her basic or, seasoned queen or whatever. She'll put it on a hat or a T-shirt or a necklace, and she'll just wear it, or she'll make a song about it. And she likes to sort of reclaim those things and sort of look at them from the reverse and sort of celebrate them, which comes out of as a kid being made fun of for being effeminate. So I was like, what if we could kind of take this term that was said to you negatively, that was one of the last sort of critiques of you on the show, and kind of reclaim it, look at it, and celebrate all of the work that you do within the Rochester community, and how important you've been as a queer role model for kids, and kind of get away that negative connotation from the show and turn it into something positive.
Very cool. We get to travel and do a lot of film festivals, and we see a lot of films go to many different film festivals. I think this film festival highlights perfectly this film, but I would like to ask a broader question. How fun has the festival circuit been for you and the film? Because I do feel you've gotten to go to some of the more unique, fun festivals, and they really do highlight this film kind of perfectly, very much like the Workhorse Queen.
Yeah, obviously the film festival experience this year is very different. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of festivals are still virtual. Some of the festivals that we've done have done an amazing job, despite being virtual, in creating community among the filmmakers, in really, creating a meaningful experience, despite, watching it on your laptop or your TV at home, without that, physical theater experience. Shout out to Slam Dance, who that's where we premiered, and I think they did a pretty exceptional job of creating community. I was really coming from a background, I'm a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and so I was really excited to be a part of, the kind of discourse around documentary filmmaking, and so for me, festivals were really exciting for that reason. Obviously, films go go through all sorts of different trajectories. Some never go to festivals, some just go straight to distribution. But for me, the festival context, being in dialogue with other artists, is really exciting to me. And yeah, Bentonville this is the first, we've been in 5 physical festivals that have had physical versions. We've been in like 15 other festivals. But this is the first one that I've gotten to come to personally, Bentonville, because I have a 9-month-old baby at home. So yeah, it's been amazing getting to know the filmmakers and the other films that are here, and yeah, being a part of this community, and particularly just how the focus on this festival is diversity and inclusion behind and in front of the camera. And so I couldn't be more honored to be in that, like within that sort of framework with this film. So
well, thank you for coming to Bentonville, and congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
And yeah, thank you for bringing the film and for making the film, taking the time to do this film. I think it's something that can be very eye-opening for people, but also can be very homely and cathartic. And I loved it. I was kind of blown away by it.
Thank you.
And yeah, I hope the festival world continues to see more of your work. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.